Alrighty, so let's go in. Let's look at the game by game. So they're bringing in Richardson. I'll give you my hot take that I find interesting about football. Just as while we pull this up, I find it so interesting that in the NFL they have such poor quarterback development processes. I think we've talked about this before. One of the things I've never understood is um, the strategy of giving the ball without question to this young quarterback who's never played in the league, came from a league previously that plays a completely different style. It's getting closer, but it's still quite a bit different playing college football than it is playing in the NFL. And then expecting this guy to succeed and not get injured. Why do they go and say, well, we're going back to him. He's number one again, blah, blah, blah. Why don't they just say, we're going to play two quarterbacks and on a game by game basis, even to the point of, I don't understand why they don't run two quarterbacks in the same game. It would be so difficult as a defense to strategize knowing that you've got two quarterbacks coming out with two completely different styles. Obviously, when one is on the field, you're going to recognize that, okay, they're going to probably run more of these types of plays. But to go into a week as a defense knowing that you have to potentially, and they do it in every other position. They do it in running back, they do it in wide receiver, they do it every, I don't understand why they don't do it at quarterback. And I get it, it's hard to learn the position, it's hard to learn all the plays. But we're talking about the best players in the world. Like if it was me, I would have Flacco and Richardson going out there in the same game, running different plays, and that's your offense. And then that way you get the reps that are required for that young player to continue to get better, but you also still have a chance to win um, in the event that they make mistakes, in the event that they're not having a good game and they're having an off day. Okay, we're going less Richardson, we're going more Flacco. Okay, Richardson's having a great game. Here, we'll pull in the Richardson games. Richardson's having a great game. Okay, leave him in. Less Flacco. Like I don't get it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess the counterpoint to that would probably just be like, oh, he can't get into of like the flow of the game, I guess, would be the only counterpoint. But I don't know. So my issue with this entire Anthony Richardson thing is they drafted him top 10, right? He this is a known thing that he needs game reps. He only started like 20 games total in his college career. It was like low 20s. Like he basically played no game. He played one full season as like the starting quarterback and he gets drafted top 10, based off of his potential, right? But it's known that he needs game reps. So you draft him top 10, then you bring him into the NFL. He gets hurt in his rookie season, so he gets a handful of starts. Then you come out this year, whatever, they're playing with him. I don't know if you know like the full story of this. So he basically led them down the field a few weeks ago. He asked to come out of the game. They are like it's like they're in the red zone. He asked to come out of the game, and people thought he was hurt. So they put Flacco in, whatever, they run the play. Then it comes out after the game, he wasn't hurt. He said he was tired. And so that just like set people off. Like you're a starting quarterback, you can't say you're tired and ask to come out of the game. Like the linemen are tired, everyone's tired. So then they bench him and they go to Flacco. So everyone speculates that he got benched because of just leadership qualities, like asking to come out of that game when there was nothing wrong with him. But then you have the coach, he comes out, Shane Steichen, he says, that's not why we benched him. But everyone knows that's probably why he got benched.
Gotcha.
So then they make this counter argument like, oh, he's young, he needs reps. Like we're kind of like close to a playoff spot. We're in win now mode. They're not in win now mode, first of all. You're not in win now mode when you draft a quarterback top 10 that has played like 20 games in his life. Like you're not in win now mode. But regardless, they say they're in win now mode. They go to Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco plays the last two games. He's thrown like 8 interceptions in 2 games. The one game they didn't even make it to the red zone. So everything that they've done at this point is just completely backwards, and now they're going back to Anthony Richardson. So I don't know. It
Yeah.
makes zero sense to me. Like if you want to discipline him for asking to come out of the game, I'm sure you can do that in some aspect. But claiming you're going to Joe Flacco to win now, and then him proceeding to throw like 8 interceptions in 2 games, and it just is disaster. The team is a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had heard that story. I didn't realize that they were, that they were being punitive in terms of uh, kind of how they were managing his playing time.
Yeah,
Um, so that makes sense. Like, you can't be tired. Like you're a pro quarterback. Like you're a pro athlete. You should probably just get out there and play the game and suck it up. And this is your opportunity. And you should know the fact that this is your one chance. And you look at some of the other guys um, that have come before him that have had a similar chance at the similar height, and 2 years later they're backup quarterbacks and they're out of the league. Like look at Trey Lance, who might be playing for the Cowboys this weekend. He's a perfect example. He was the great hope in San Francisco, and he didn't really get a long chance. He got beat by Brock Purdy and didn't play very well either. So
yeah,
yeah, I didn't know that, but again, I come back to it. I'm like, well, are you really putting this guy in a position to succeed? Like, if you look in hockey, I always relate quarterback and goaltender to be similar types of positions. If you have a bad goalie in hockey, you're not winning. Like it's just that's the reality of it. So they're always trying to find that there are uh, one goalie plays in the net each game. And there are thousands of developmental teams that have goalies. So there are thousands of goalies out there. And they've switched as opposed to handing the reins to these high profile guys as goalies to now slowly moving them into that role. So, for example, in Calgary, we have Dustin Wolf. Dustin Wolf is won at every level. He's highest pedigree out there in terms of goalie, maybe not highest. There's been others that have been higher, but he's right up there. And so he played 2 years in the minors in the AHL as a professional to learn to be a pro, play with real men. Then he split time in the NHL and the AHL. This year, I guess it would have been last year. He would have been brought. Yeah, last year would have been a split season. This year, he's playing full time in the NHL, but he doesn't play every game. Dan Vladar, a vet, plays half of the games. And so instead of spoiling this high profile prospect, they're slowly letting him learn the game and find success and build confidence, and it's working. So I look at this situation and I'm like, Flacco's not your answer. Flacco's the same age as me.
yeah, yeah. No, he needs game reps. This
Yeah,
was a known fact when you drafted him that
yeah,
he needed game reps. The entire process of it doesn't make any sense. And the same goes for Trey Lance. The 49ers, like they get masked because like think of how lucky the 49ers were to take
yeah,
Brock Purdy with the last pick in the draft. Like if they didn't do that, this is an entirely different situation. They also just have a better team and coaching staff surrounded by it. So that gets covered up. But the fact that they drafted Trey Lance exactly like Anthony Richardson has barely started 1 year as a starter. You know he needs to play. So I, it's like they know he needs to play, and then he plays 4 games, and it's kind of like iffy. And they're like, "Oh, we got to make a change." Like you knew this coming in. You knew this. It doesn't make any sense to
yeah.
me.
Yeah, and even if you compare Richardson and like obviously Purdy is he didn't have a good game there, but he's definitely, a superior quarterback, and you got a little bit lucky. But how do you reduce that luck?
Yeah,
Like, I think you come back in and you look at, okay, you have Flacco's been serviceable for some of these games. He can be a really good mentor for Anthony Richardson, teach him how to be a pro. Just take the pressure off the kid. Like, give him a chance. And you still want to win now. You can win now with Richardson and Flacco. But all this drama, I don't think that's helpful. Like, this guy's coming in this weekend now being like, I got my hand slapped for whatever reason previously, poor play or not being in shape. And um, the other thing I will say that I'll make a comment, like I have a few friends that played in the NHL. often what they'll say, and even Saquon Barkley is a perfect example of this. After they come back from a major injury, it takes them like 6 months to a full season to actually get back in shape. So, he pretty much missed all of last year with the exception of the start. He could still be building up muscle. He could still be kind of getting back in shape. So even the organization to go and punish him for not playing well and then saying I'm tired, I don't know. That's not very supportive. You're not. This Anthony Richardson is not going to be the all-star they're looking for. Not with the Colts. This is not going to turn out well. It's the same story that all those other failed quarterbacks. Then you have a Sam Darnold pop up in Minnesota, and all of a sudden it works out because he's a little bit older. He understands how to be a pro. He understands the playbook. He understands how to get hit. He understands the pressure of the limelight.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy came in as a rookie, but again, this is someone that had years as a starter, right? It's not someone that's only played a handful of
Yeah.
games. Same with like Bo Nix this year for the Denver Broncos, right? He's played serviceable,
Yeah.
but this is someone he had the most starts ever for a quarterback at the collegiate level. Like the guy has played a number of games, not one singular season. So it's a completely different scenario. The problem with the Colts thing though is now, man, it's like now anytime like now that he's back as a starter, anytime something goes, one way or something, they'll be like everyone will just question like, oh, he was just tired. Like, like this is gonna create just a toxic
I
situation, I feel like, especially
I
with
know
the fan base.
it's not going to work. It's not going to
It's
work
not.
out. But like, even if you look at Bo Nix, so he had a good game last game. He had a so-so game the game before. Um, he had a good game the game before. Like they're giving
Yeah,
him
is
the
it
start
really
of the
that
year.
different though?
No, he's not. Anthony Richardson had a better first game of the season. They were about equal the next game. Bo Nix had a better third game. Richardson was better in this game. I don't know if this is the same week. Yeah, same week. It's not that different.
Yeah,
But
and
in
the
Denver,
narratives are
they're
so different.
exactly. In Denver, it's like, oh well, we were absolutely trashed the last 2 years. Um, there's no pressure. Now all of a sudden they're starting to win. He feels a bit more confident. They've been supportive. He's starting to play better. Let's see. Like next week, if he has a poor game, are they going to be saying the same thing? They're not going to be harping on him like they've been harping on Richardson.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna be curious to see how he plays this week.
yeah, it'll be interesting. The other thing that I found really interesting about last week is less rushing because I've always kind of at the start of the year saw him as a bit of a guy who could use his legs, which I think helped him. A lot of short passes uses his legs. But the last 3 weeks, significantly less rushing attempts and significantly more throwing.
Yeah, I'm sure teams are, making adjustments to what they've seen on film. Also, last week they played the Chiefs, so tough,
Yeah,
defensive matchup, definitely.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. I want Anthony Richardson to play well. I don't even know who did they play this week. I don't even know. I haven't looked at the
I don't have
schedule
the
yet.
schedule, and look, I can go to. I can't pull up the schedule. I will not pull it up on screen.
Oh my Lord, I know who they play. Can you take a guess? They this is like you can't even write this. They play a team that is like equally as dysfunctional as them.
The Jets.
Yeah. Yes, they play the Jets this week. You can't even write that.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
speaking
Colt.
of
Yeah, I think I
that,
knew that Colts versus the Jets. But
speaking
yeah,
of the Jets, I saw a great headline from the Jets head coach today. And he said, this is a direct quote. The Jets will return to fundamentals of tackling this week. It's good. It's good. Week
like we're
11 of
gonna
the season, I'm glad we're returning to the fundamentals of tackling there. I like that.
we're going to learn to play football again because the cream of the crop of hundreds of colleges as well as years of professional experience these guys can't tackle. Like so much of this stuff comes down to culture. If you've got a shitty culture, all these guys are good athletes. All of them can tackle. But if it's an absolute shit show in the organization, in the dressing room, they're fighting, they're confused, they're doubting where they should be, they're questioning whether they're gonna have a job. They don't perform. Like that's why Andy Reid is such a good coach. It's just so stable all the time. No drama ever. Any of his teams.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know. I mean, I feel like people kind of associate Aaron Rodgers like they thought he would bring that stability because the Jets have long been a dysfunctional team, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
is no different than any of the other bad teams in the NFL. The Jets have been bad for a long time, right? And I think people thought that Aaron Rodgers would fix that, but I don't know. Like this isn't 2012 Aaron Rodgers, right? Like he doesn't come to training camp. I mean, they had Hassan Reddick sit out until just the last few weeks as well. Like the entire team, it just had like a weird vibe the entire
Well,
season.
and the reality is, like Rodgers really hasn't been that bad.
No, no, he hasn't. No, the last few weeks he's actually well, okay, if we take the Arizona game out, which was what they played last week, but he was coming on
Yeah.
like playing pretty good, like passing wise. He's putting the best passing stats up we've seen probably since the last year he won MVP. Like he wasn't playing bad, and the
Yeah.
offense like has weapons, but it's just I don't know. It's like dysfunctional. I don't think that like I didn't understand firing Robert Saleh. Like don't
Yeah.
really know what that does. Like he coaches the defense. The problems have been the offense. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers' boy, Nathaniel Hackett, was running the offense. I know they changed play callers, but I don't know. It's a tough situation. Aaron Rodgers is a great. If we talk about pure football skill, yeah, he's one of the best. He's top five, six all time of throwing a football. But at the end of the day, he won one Super Bowl 10 years ago. What it was like 12 years ago. Wait a minute, when
Yeah.
they beat the Steelers.
He's
So this
old
is
too.
forever ago. Yeah, one Super Bowl, never really had a good run with the Packers. I mean, the last couple years he was with the Packers, he was notorious for just losing in the first round, like getting a bye and then losing. So I don't know. I don't know. Tough situation there, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and again, like I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a bit of a dumpster fire all the time. So you take a guy who's talking about ayahuasca and all his crazy theories, throw him in there. Like, what did you expect was going to happen? Like, he's not a culture
Yeah,
builder.
that stuff works when you win, right? Going on Pat
Yeah,
McAfee every week. If you're winning, like you can
yeah,
you can do, right? Like if Patrick Mahomes was going on Pat McAfee every week, no one
yeah,
would blink an eye. Like they win. But
yeah,
when you're not winning, it just adds fuel to the fire, you know?
yeah, yeah. I think that all those guys should wait till the end of their career, like Tom Brady. Just wait. Just play football. Do a few interviews, be likable,
Yeah, like are they
and
that
then
bored during the season? You have to go on like a talk show every week?
it's it's just all ego, just all
Yeah,
limelight and ego, and you know they
yeah.
get this inflated
Typically,
view of themselves.
I feel like quarterbacks, though, like any professional athlete has an ego. I'm not dispelling that, but I feel like quarterbacks, at least the good ones, usually like they never really had that. Like it feels like Aaron Rodgers has so much power, right? When he first joined the Jets, he's like, I want Randall Cobb, I want Alan Lazard, I want my OC Nathaniel Hackett, all this stuff they gave him, right? And then the next season, that's not working. Oh, I want Devontae Adams back, right? They
Yeah,
go and get Devontae Adams, right? Like he has too much power.
yeah,
I would comp it, I guess, to like we've always seen this with LeBron James, right? Like he gets
yeah,
whoever he wants on his teams, right? And I don't remember like another quarterback being like that. Like obviously Tom Brady would get what he wants, but Tom Brady always took less money during his New England days. He always took less money to have guys on his team, right? And I don't Aaron Rodgers
yeah.
has not done that at least when since he's joined the Jets.
Well, and like Bill Belichick had a culture there where it was next man up, and it didn't matter who slotted in, it was successful. Whereas as going out and picking your guy, doesn't really breed the right culture again in the locker room. You know, you can get a couple of those guys, but recreating the 2018 Packers is not going to win in 2024. I don't know. I just picked a random year, but
No,
it's
yeah.
just not going to work. It's just not going to work. And um, it's funny too because like even when he was leaving Green Bay, I'm like, as an aging athlete, what's worth more? Your legacy? His legacy as a Green Bay Packer would have been exceptional. He could have gone and played 1 year somewhere else, like a few years like Favre. Like no one really remembers Favre playing in Minnesota. And then yeah, didn't Favre play somewhere else as well? Did he play for the?
Yeah, he was on the Jets for a while.
Yeah, I was like, wasn't he on the Jets too? But you only really think of him as as a Packer, and um, it's the same thing. Like even before Johnny Gaudreau left Calgary in hockey, like what's the value of the money that you're signing? Like he could have built a legacy here that he would have been, they would have erected statues for him. I could have done the same thing. So is it really worth Aaron leaving? You probably could have stayed there for a bit longer. You could have been enshrined in the organization. You've made a little bit more money that you don't need at the Jets, and you're not going to win another Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's not winning. I would be shocked if he won another Super Bowl at this point. I mean, he doesn't have many years left. Like they had two wins this year, so they're not even making the playoffs. And then what, maybe next year, but I don't know. I think in terms of football, throwing the football, Aaron Rodgers is better than Tom Brady at throwing the football. But mentality and being a
Yeah,
leader, I would take Tom Brady 10 times out of 10 over Aaron
yeah,
Rodgers. And even
yeah,
Brett Favre, when he went to Minnesota, he still took them to the playoffs the 1 year, right?
yep,
Like Aaron Rodgers has
yeah,
done literally nothing since he left the Packers. Tom Brady left the Patriots and won a Super Bowl. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. And I just comped him to LeBron. I mean, you can say what you want about LeBron, but he at least, I mean, he went to Miami, won a championship. He went back to Cleveland, won a championship. He went to the Lakers. It was in the bubble, but he won a championship. Like, these guys have won when they've done this. Aaron Rodgers has not done that.
Yeah. And even now, LeBron though is like, okay, well, I'm going to build my legacy as a Laker. I'm going to bring my son there. I'm going to bring my buddy in as the coach. Like I'm building my legacy. I'm not here now to win. Even in hockey, Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin,
Yeah.
like they're terrible right now. They are terrible, but they're building the legacy. They're not going to go and we'll see what happens there. Like some of those guys are going to get sold off.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think Crosby's going anywhere,
No,
and
he
he's
could
in
have
the
willingly left though if he wanted, right? Like, just
absolutely.
gone to like a better team. Like, okay, I'm gonna finish my career out here. Maybe we'll win a cup or something.
Yeah. And they probably won't be good again while he's still with them because he's at that age. But he's going to cement his legacy as a Penguin the same way Mario did.
Yeah, it's like, man, it's like if you haven't won a championship, I guess I would understand trying to leave. But Aaron Rodgers, like I said, he hasn't had postseason success, but he has a Super Bowl. So
Yeah,
yeah, to your point, he could have just stayed there. I feel like people respect people more when they stay there. The Brady thing's a little different because it was kind of like he was kind of like scorned, I feel like, by them. So it that was kind of like I'm gonna prove you wrong, and like I think that became like not saying he has any ill feelings toward Bill Belichick, but I think that kind of became that got transformed into like was it Bill Belichick or was it Tom Brady that was the main reason of their success? So I think he kind of had a chip on his shoulder, and he was like, I'm gonna prove you all wrong. So that was like a little different, but yeah, I don't know. Rodgers, he should have stayed in Green Bay, to be honest with you.
for
I agree,
sure.
but
And he
it was
didn't
kind of a
like
weird situation since they drafted Jordan Love. I don't know.
well, again, to come back to kind of going full circle in this conversation. You come back and you look at it as like, okay, well, what is the best thing you could do later in your career? And I get it. Like giving up the football is hard. But the best thing that he could have done is remain there and turn Jordan Love into a superstar and played behind or they share or whatever. Like I do believe that it is an underutilized strategy, and maybe I don't understand because I didn't play a lot of football growing up. But I just think that if you had two dynamic quarterbacks with two very unique, that they have a similar concept in hockey. If your PP1 has runs one system and your PP2 runs a different system, it gets very difficult to defend as penalty killers because they're coming out and they're running completely different plays. If you had that, I think that would be very dynamic. Like that would be something that would make significantly harder for teams to defend against. And you could run that where Rodgers comes out, plays a couple games, Love goes in, you know, and then slowly it's more Love and less Rodgers, and Rodgers finds himself in the in the coach's tracksuit eventually, as opposed to maybe Rodgers is a bad example because maybe he probably wouldn't be a very good coach. Um,
Yeah.
But for another guy like Brady, I think probably would have been a pretty good coach. He could have taken that same route. Obviously, he's got
He would be
bigger.
a better coach than broadcaster, dude. He's not been good on these games, man. He's kind of
No,
boring.
yeah, he's in his delivery's so slow. Like,
Yeah, it's just but he doesn't I don't know. I never got that from him that like he would be good at calling games, right? Like Tony
no,
Romo, you could see like, okay, I could see him calling a game. Maybe like some guys they just have like different personalities, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, Tony Romo's likable and he's fast, intelligent. He's got good quips. Brady never says anything.
No, it's very and look, I'm not knocking on him. I'm sure it's very hard to call a game. So I'm sure he'll get better over time, but I've not been impressed by the early returns of Tom Brady calling these football games.
No, I think that he would be better. Um, you know, Actually, I don't think he'd be better at that. I was going to
He doesn't need
say,
to do anything. He just bought in what? He's part owner of the Raiders now or whatever.
yeah,
Like I think they approved that. Like, dude, just go do that. Why do you have to like call games? I don't understand.
yeah, that's ego. But you know what? Well, and he needs money after FTX. But the but you know what? That's a perfect example. Brady, go into the Raiders, make them a good organization. Everyone would want to
I
play
always
there.
wonder, yeah, I always wonder though, like some of these great players are just not good at running teams because they're so like wound how they're wound, like at being like they can't find a group of people that are like them, right? There's only a couple guys. Like Michael Jordan's never been good at running the Hornets, or when
Yeah,
he ran the Bobcats slash Hornets because he couldn't. He was trying to find Michael Jordans, and there is none of them. Like he couldn't
yeah,
construct a team properly, and he was never like his pride is too big to like tank to get a number one pick. Like they never had a super high pick until they got like LaMelo Ball because like he wouldn't purposely tank. Like he just couldn't bring himself to do it. So I don't know. Sometimes those really great players, I think,
yeah. I
struggle
agree.
running like a team or something like that.
Gretzky was the same way. Gretzky was an
Yeah, I'm
awful
sure. Yeah,
coach
yeah,
because he could do it, but he couldn't explain to other people how to do it. He would just go out and do it. So yeah, there's examples, but I think in the case of Brady, you know, Belichick ran an organization a certain way. Um, they had a very good do your job, next man up mentality. Um, you could go off, you'd have a big enough personality that you could fend off the owners in Las Vegas from doing damaging things within the organization. Because that's sometimes just as difficult as holding the owners back from doing stupid stuff and just let the football guys do football things.
yeah. He should go help the Cowboys out, man. They got to get Jerry Jones out of there.
Yeah, yeah,
Disaster.
yeah,
There's a lot of
yeah.
dysfunctional teams when you start talking about it.
A lot of it's funny because one of the things I always thought is like, how do these billionaires, how do they become billionaires that they can buy these teams when they go to run the teams, they're so bad at it. And it's so obvious how bad they are at it. Like Terry Paluga, I mispronounced his name, obviously the Bills are okay. But the Buffalo Sabres, they're terrible. Like how did you get so successful with one team? How did you get so successful in your business life? Yet you cannot figure out how to run an organization. like the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, this all boils down, which we've said a couple times now. This all boils down to ego. This happens with coaches all the time. They refuse to. You should adapt to your team's strengths. Not every team is the same, right? You can't just like keep doing the same thing over and over and over with every team you coach and expect like. But this comes down to ego. Like they think, oh, I was great doing this. This is how we got to do it. Like you have to be able to adapt or die, to be honest, especially in sports because it changes so quickly year after year. And if you don't adapt, you're just going to get left behind.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, shifting gears, looking at this week. I know we were going to do power rankings. I've got this week's schedule up, and there's stats, and then my kind of own formula ranking. Um, what do you think of this week? What are your key matchups?
Yeah, I think man, upon first looking at this here, well, first and foremost, we talk about Colts and Jets is just that's just a hilarious matchup. I mean, that has nothing to do with
Yeah.
like winning, but that's just hilarious that those teams are playing.
So it's funny when
Ray,
we were just to call something out. So it's really
you
funny.
got
Like very infrequently do you get zeros
zeros.
in this formula because they just
Okay,
don't have the same.
explain this formula a little bit before
Yeah,
we
okay.
dive in
So
here.
essentially, and I'll pull up the math behind it. So we'll scroll down to the better view. Essentially, what I'm doing is I'm taking the average of the normalized categories for wins, points scored, um, yards, uh, and then uh, turnovers and points against defense. So I'm normalizing each of those different categories. I'm getting the average of those normalized values, and then I'm comparing the two teams. So to get zero is pretty wild, considering like they've played different games, they've got different wins, they've got like just all the numbers are different. When you normalize it down, obviously it puts it between 0 and 1. Um, but it is funny that the Jets and the Colts are essentially considered an equal matchup this upcoming week.
Yeah, I wonder why. But no, those three games with the zeros are all stick out to me. Jets, Colts for just being hilarious that those teams are playing.
Yeah,
Bills, Chiefs. I mean, we don't need to even. I mean, obvious, right? They're kind of like rivals. They've had
yeah,
playoff matchups. Huge game. Chiefs are still undefeated. And then, dude, Steelers, Ravens. I
great
mean,
game.
yeah, the Ravens. I'm still of the belief the Ravens. Look, end of day, I've been a Patrick Mahomes guy since he was in college. I've made a lot of money betting on Patrick Mahomes, and including last year, right? I mean, the Chiefs were underdogs against the Ravens last year, and the
Yeah,
Chiefs were not the public side of the Super Bowl when they played the 49ers, but I think the Ravens are the best team right now in the AFC. And then I would honestly put Ravens, Chiefs, Steelers, that's like 1 through 3. And then the Bills are probably fourth. Like that's the four best teams and they're all playing each other.
yeah, I completely agree. And like the only thing I will say is I was a bit surprised that like I like Josh Allen. I think that he's number two to Mahomes right now. But when they got rid of when they kind of like when Diggs left, Gabe Davis left, I was like, well, who's going to throw the ball to? And that question still kind of stands in my mind. But they're getting it done. Like
Yeah.
it,
I
it
have a
almost
theory about this.
that you think that he made those players.
Well, but I have a theory that the Chiefs have kicked the Bills' ass so many times. And if you look at the Chiefs, right, they have Travis Kelce, but he's getting older. They had Tyreek Hill for a little bit, but they traded him away 2 years ago. They just have like a hodgepodge of receivers. And I think that the Bills, they were like, because they've lost to the Chiefs so many times, it was like, we're gonna we're gonna try and mimic what you do. We have a great quarterback. Let's take out one guy that we're trying to force feed the ball to, and we're just gonna have like a collection of like athletes at receiver. Like I think they just modeled exactly what the Chiefs do.
Yeah. Well, and they've scored more. Um,
Yeah, and I feel like people thought they
they
would drop off this year, but they've been great.
they have more yards per that's not per game per play. Um, and their defense has been a little bit worse. And they've turned the ball over less.
Yeah, Josh
So
Allen's picks, he threw two last week, but way down relative to
Yeah.
what it has been.
So yeah, like it's even though the Chiefs have been perfect so far, the reality is that the stats are on the favor on the side of the Bills in reality.
Hmm.
But
What
this
are
is
your Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think this is probably my uh the week that I look forward to the most so far in the season.
Yeah, I completely agree. For real life football watching, these are great games. I was gonna ask what your predictions are for those two games.
I like it's I feel like the Bills eventually have to beat them. And like it feels like it's just this constant rubber match and they keep losing. So I think that and the Chiefs, like are they gonna go 16-0? No. So who's gonna beat them? Well, I think this is the game that they're probably gonna lose. So although the Chiefs I think are a better team, and I think this I think they're a wagon. I think they're favorites to win the Super Bowl and they've kind of proven that so far. But I think they're gonna lose. And I think the Ravens are gonna beat the Steelers. I will say though, for all those Russell Wilson haters, I did pick up Russell Wilson in fantasy this week to replace Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, he's been playing great. I know Pittsburgh got a lot of flack for moving from field, whatever they were 4-1 or 4-2 or whatever
Yeah,
when they benched Fields for him. Like I don't know, they took a lot of flack for that, but he's played great.
he's been better.
Oh, most
Well, and
definitely.
it's
I
funny
don't
because if
think
you
they
look,
would have won last week. Like they don't come from behind and win that game with Fields. Like they're different style
no,
players.
no, I completely agree. And it is funny. Like, do you think that the Bears regret Caleb Williams now?
Yeah, this is a tough situation. I don't think they regret it
I'm gonna go back to the other game by game. Yeah,
because I don't think they regret it. We've seen flashes from him, right? I mean, he led the team under 2 minutes, fourth quarter against the Commanders. He led the team down the field. They scored and got the 2 point to win that game, right? And then they gave up a Hail Mary. That's not on Caleb Williams, right? So the narrative right there would be a little bit different if he just had a come from behind win 2 weeks ago that got ruined by that Hail Mary. But I think that Hail Mary broke the team just
yeah,
systemically.
I would agree with that.
And coaching wise, I know they fired their offensive coordinator, whatever, finally, but I don't understand why these guys get jobs, right? Like this guy was in Seattle, had DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba, their offense, Kenneth Walker, their offense was not good, right? So if you have all those weapons and your offense is not good, why would you hire that guy again to come coach you? And then once again, he comes to Chicago. He has Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Romo Dunze, DeAndre Swift. The offense isn't good. At the end of the day, the offense, regardless of if the team is bad or not, the offense has to score points when you have those guys on offense. Even if you're bad, you
Yeah,
can be bad but score points, and they were not doing that. So I don't know, but I don't understand why they hired this guy to begin with. So I think Caleb Williams got a little bit of a raw deal in
yeah,
that aspect, but he's still a rookie. We'll see how he looks the rest of the season, I guess. But the narrative would still be different. Like he led the team down and won that game. They just gave up. I don't know how they gave up that Hail Mary.
yeah. But yeah, I hope again, this conversation go full circle that they give him a fair shot, that they develop him, that he gets the opportunity to be a real everyday quarterback, as opposed to throwing him in the inferno and trying to let it trying to get him to soak himself off with a super soaker to stay alive.
Yeah, I was trying to look. I mean, the Bears, I mean, they're 5.5 point underdogs this week. Ravens are 3 point favorites in Pittsburgh for that game. Bills minus 2.5 at home. Interesting. Trying to see who's taking money just to see. It's not popping up. But regardless, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs lose their first game this week. Like they're not going to go undefeated. They're going to lose a game at some point. They've definitely gotten a little lucky. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, I have no idea because weird things happen in Pittsburgh for these big games. I don't know. People call it Mike Tomlin voodoo, whatever you want to call it. Weird things happen in these games. I also think Lamar, I don't think wins is like a quarterback stat, but just like I think he's struggled against Pittsburgh in his
Mm.
career off the top of my head without looking. So I don't know. I'll be curious to see that game. But I would not be shocked if the Bills finally beat the Chiefs this week. I think that was a good prediction.